Hi, it's Ricky of Moshville Times here once again. Now, tonight I'm delighted to welcome the band Fires in the Distance, who are an American melodic death doom metal band of the highest order. Tonight we've got guitarist songwriter Igor, and we've also got the drummer Jordan. So, how are you guys doing? Have you managed to escape COVID and all this nonsense? How are you doing, guys?
We've done pretty well with COVID. I mean, when the pandemic first started, we got to play one show that summer. It was outside,
Yeah.
all all ordinances were followed, but it was definitely a weird 2 years not being able to be on stage. But
Yeah.
luckily, I mean, I know Christian and Craig and I think Jordan might have too caught COVID like a couple of times
Yeah.
over this whole time period, but luckily I've been fingers crossed.
Yeah. Same here, mate. Same
Well,
here.
so,
Well,
but it hasn't really affected like our shows or anything like that. So
But with other interviews that I've done, like Kieran from Ashen Crown, for example, just a band down here in England, he's the vocalist, but it took him a good 4 or 5 months to get his vocals back. It really affected some people. But I know that you guys aren't the vocalists. But during the year where you couldn't get together again, were you actually getting sick of your guitar, Igor? Like, I just can't look at it just now. And Jordan, you can play the drums for months. Or did you actually find that this was your most creative time writing? You actually got a shitload done.
yeah, I mean, yes, it was an interesting time for sure because when the pandemic started, I was already a fair ways into writing this second album that's coming out. So it's kind of gave me a little bit more room to explore where I was going with it for sure.
Yeah.
So Jordan's got, well, he can speak for himself, but he's got other projects that he's involved with too, so I'm sure he stayed busy.
Cool.
yeah, definitely. I kind of had of course plenty of time. I had roommates, so couldn't play drums all the time. Plus some neighbors who gave us some police complaints. But the police were, we were always done by the time the parties were, really complained to. But yeah, it was a lot of time to practice. I feel like sit down and look at just like things I was wanted to change about the playing, things, for the record, and get into more, I guess, metal drumming that I feel like I'm not the quintessential kind of blast beat metal drummer, speed
Yeah.
demon. So kind of looking at other things that we could be playing in other genres, just more exploring. I think it was very creative. Yeah, it was a good time for practicing aside from the rest of the unfun stuff.
Did you actually feel that you listened to a hell of a lot more music? So, Igor, did you listen to anything new, and it might have influenced the sound of this album that we'll talk about in a minute?
I I do on a regular basis as it is.
Yeah.
I look for new music almost on a daily basis, so it really didn't change that much for me.
Yeah.
I did start exploring like particular genres that kind of put me in the mind space of where I wanted to be for this album, like a lot of like post black metal stuff, a lot of like atmospheric music in general that wasn't necessarily metal. So like
Yeah.
yeah, I kind of like delved more into those avenues just to see what I could find, what kind of like soundscapes I could like absorb. But as far as like listening to new music, that's a regular thing for me. I'm always on the hunt for then something.
Well, talking of finding new music, you might find new music on a particular radio show on a Thursday night from 8 o'clock at night to 11 o'clock at night every week. So just another wee place for you to look for. They're also recorded in Mixcloud as well, so you don't need to be up at 3 o'clock in the morning to listen to it. But anyway,
Right.
but yes, I have played Harbingers and Wisdom of the Fallen Leaves for the last month and a bit. Highly enjoyable, and it's great pleasure playing them. I haven't quite played Idiopathic Despair yet, but I will get round to it. But with your brand new album, Air Not Meant for Us, getting released in a few weeks, how does it feel to finally release it after all the blood, sweat, and tears that you put into it?
I mean, at least for me, every album release kind of feels like a birthday. You know, it's
Yeah,
because it is like you said, it was a lot of work for the first record and much more so for this one. Like the process that we put into it and how we went about recording it and like the places that we went to record it and just the investment that we put into it. And some of the people I've had help me along the way for sure. It's a much bigger project than I anticipated it to be. So for it to be finally, ready to go is very exhilarating. Of course, I'm sure it is for everybody, but you only get to release these albums once,
Yeah.
so it's a big deal, to make it go smoothly.
I've also heard it being said by other guys, like once it's officially released, you just want to get onto the new chapter and get the next one done, start on
I mean,
something new.
I started writing stuff for the next one a while ago. So,
Yeah, I knew
I
you.
mean, these songs have been done for over a year and a half, so personally, I'm already sick of them to death.
Yeah,
But,
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, we haven't got a chance to play them live yet, so but yeah, definitely exciting and going to be a huge relief to just have everything available for everybody to check out, with their leisure. And I know we're pressing them with the marketing, but of course, when they're ready to receive everything,
yeah.
they can dive into the album because I forget the actual playtime of it. Do you remember, Igor?
the
It was like
51 minutes.
51. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, but you're quite a creative man, Igor. I mean, not only are you a guitarist, you also do. Am I right in saying that you do violas and violins and cellos and pianos? Jordan, I would definitely keep him in the band. To be quite honest with you,
Mhm.
Well,
but,
I program those instruments, and luckily I had someone on this album. His name is Randy Slaw, who's an amazing musician, producer, composer, who's worked with Devin Townsend and Periphery. He writes music for like ESPN. Um, he contacted me after hearing the first album, and he offered to work with me. And he actually brought in live strings and like the actual organic orchestral sound to this, which I couldn't, obviously replicate through my programming means. So that was definitely a very welcome addition to like the overall sound in this album. It's much more real aesthetically, because there's real cellos and real violins on this, and a real piano too.
so how did he write the parts? Did you give him like the 10-second riff where you wanted it to come in, or did you just give
Well,
him a complete artistic freedom, or what?
I um I would write out everything that I have, like as far as synthesizers go, and I would send it to him, and he would write like his idea over it, and we would just settle on something in the middle. It was never really too far outside of where I was going with it. He definitely added that gigantic orchestral part in the beginning of Harbingers. Like that was,
Yeah,
I had nothing to do with that. But
yeah,
so, and, so he definitely brought that song to a new level. Outside of that, I send him my parts and the melodies, and he supplements it with whatever magic that he has on his end, and like spruces it up to a place where I couldn't do it on my own. So
yeah. So how long did it take you to record the album? Was it quite a straightforward process, or was it like a few hiccups along the way? You lost the master tapes or something like that, or like
no,
was it quite a
no.
straightforward process?
It was fairly smooth. It took about 2 months. I mean, we recorded the drums in a separate studio here in Connecticut, in this really massive room. It's called the Power Station, New England, and we recorded the guitars in North Carolina with at our producer's own studio. So it was spread out, but
Yeah.
it was necessary to capture that kind of sound. But I mean, by the time it was ready to lay things down, I mean, it was quick because we all knew the stuff. So
Yeah. Was there any material left over from Echoes from Deep November, or is this all brand new material?
no, not necessarily. There is one song on this new album that is like we transitioned to 7 strings on this record, but there is one song that is more of an interlude that is on the 6 string, and that was the first song that I wrote after Echoes. But it's not anything we'll ever play live or anything
Yeah.
like that. It's just instrumental, middle of the album, like transitional piece. And I had a friend of mine, James Tometti from Burial in the Sky, do a guest solo on that. And I think people will really dig it. Like it's very, very melodic, but
Well, do you know something I've been saying for weeks? I'm looking for a new opening track because I've been playing like Death Cosmic Sea, or I play like an Orcon and Faustus track, or I play Winter, Oppression Freedom, Oppression Prize. So I'm looking for a new instrumental. So I haven't had the pleasure of listening to the instrumental yet, but I would welcome to play it as just a nice lead into my show. So I'm looking forward to hearing it. But with yourself, Jordan, you're obviously the drummer as well, but were there any ideas that you brought to the table as well? Like what involvement did you have in this process?
So I think thankfully Igor has, a great sense of kind of what the drums are going to feel like for the, the riffs and everything. But in more of the parts, I think where there's a piano, for example, in the Harbingers or in Idiopathic Despair, there's more of like a laying back of the guitars and the riffs. There's more chance for me to kind of put accents here and there based on other cymbals, or just like the feeling of the groove. So it's a fun opportunity to like kind of feel the studio and feel what's right for the track, and those kind of parts of like a deep breath from the detuned guitars. So that's where I put more of my personality, I think. But the rest of the main riffs, trying to keep as locked in as possible.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Are you a guitarist as well? Like, can you play the guitar as well?
I can, yeah. I don't I try not to do it live and embarrass myself, but I do, I do play. I think I have too many, certainly for drummer, like 5. So who knows, maybe one day. But I think for this band at least I'll stick to playing the drums. These guys are really talented, and um
I was just wondering if you actually brought a
I'll
riff
save
or
the
something
embarrassment
like
for
that to the table as well.
maybe not, maybe next record. I don't know. I'll see what if Igor likes anything that I'm making up in, in the cave.
Yeah, yeah. Because I imagine you got, it's quite a lot of pressure on you being the main songwriter. Did you maybe do like 90% of it and then you welcome contributions from all the other members of the band, or was it solely you had all the songs ready?
It's my process, really. It's how it's always worked in every band that I've been in. And the guys that I've been working with, they're all aware of, if something's not broken, you don't mess with it. So it's not really so much pressure for me.
Yeah.
For example, our other guitar player, Christian, he comes from a very different background of metal. So, he was more, I think, driven by bands like Suffocation and Cannibal Corpse, where I'm as, primarily grew up on stuff like Children of Bodom and Flames, Dark Tranquility, Swallow the Sun, things like that, things that, weren't really in his camp. And that's like the primary influence that I have going. So it's really not, it's never come up.
Yeah.
I usually write something to completion and I present it to the rest of the guys. And if they have any kind of, input or any kind of suggestions, I will listen through all of them and I incorporate whatever works.
Yeah.
So it's not just like, I write everything, you guys just sit back. Like, yeah, like I said, Jordan has free reign over whatever. If he feels like, I'm not a drummer, so if a particular drum part would work better than the one that I wrote, then of course, you know what I mean? So
yeah.
But as far as composition in general, the guys just let me do my thing, and that's just what works in this particular project. Like I'm not somebody that can jam with others. I don't really, I'm not good with that. I need to sit down and like structure something. So that's just how my mind works.
Interesting. But Jordan, how does he take constructive criticism? Does he take it well, or does he go in a huff? Does it go in a mood?
We certainly put the gloves on. No, I'm kidding. It's really chill. He'll like ask like a section, like, how does it feel for you? And like, is the speed good? Is like the feeling? And I'm like, yeah, I'll try it out on myself, and see how that feels on the drums. But usually pretty good. Sometimes ask, like a length of a section, and there's more of like a description. Okay, well this is going to be vocals here, not here. So like this is why it's the I guess sometimes if I don't always see the vision, with the other layers, the say synths or vocals, it's certainly easy to talk to them, about the sections and where they're going to go. So
Yeah.
finding no broken noses as of yet.
Cool. But was it always going to be another album, Igor? Or like, did you have a discussion like we're going to release another 2 or 3 song EP or anything like that, or was it always going to be an album?
I was always going to continue writing. I mean, this whole band was experimental. The first album was experimental. My bass player and we came from a band that was much more straightforward melodic death metal with blast beats and like all of that stuff. And then, I just started the Fires on the side in my room like 2017 because I wanted to play some more slower melancholic stuff. And then, the whole thing with Prosthetic Records came about, and then we were just like, okay, might as well just keep writing, like, why not? So.
I mean, you've just answered all my bloody questions because my last question was going to be about Archaic Decapitator.
Oh, you're
What's happening with that?
Go ahead.
But I'll keep that at the end. But yeah, it's just it's a question I always ask my interviews, because I'm finding that the older generation, not that I'm saying that you're old or anything like that, they like doing an album, they like the beginning, the middle, of the end, they like the story, they like the physical product, the lyrics, the booklet, the artwork, whereas the younger generation are like couple of months single, and keeping the name out there. Rather than releasing an album and then you're waiting another 2.5 years, something like that, before there's another album. It's a double-edged sword.
There's definitely a reason for that, though. I mean, when we were in Archaic, we followed the same formula. We released 5-song EPs here and there because we weren't in a place where there was as much demand for it. So investing, because recording something properly instead of doing it in a through Axe Effects in your basement, it's like it is a financial investment.
Yeah.
So like getting all of those resources together and doing it right, to do that for a full record, it's almost too much if it's not going to be received. If there's no guarantee that it's going to be received. Like with Fires, it's a little bit different because like we gave the first album a shot, we established an audience, we established a fan base, and now with the second one, like we know that there's people out there looking forward to new music. So
yeah,
of course it's different when you're on a local level. With Archaic, it was just like, yeah, it makes sense to put out short EPs and see what, if somebody bites or like what works, because spending like a couple of $1,000s on a full-length record and for it to like fizzle out within a couple of weeks, it's rough. So
it's difficult, especially when you've now got so many one-man projects where, like you say, they just record in their basement and it sounds really good. A lot of them sound really good, but it's so difficult nowadays. But with the new record, for those that are new to the band, then how would you say it compares to your early material, and particularly your debut album, Echoes of Deep November? And do you think that you found the sound that you've been looking for with this new material then?
Yeah, that's a hard question to answer, because even with Archaic Decapitator, every album that I wrote, the sound changed a little bit in one way or another. There's never been 2 CDs that sounded the same. And I'm starting to, with this second record, I'm starting to see that same path for Fires. Because the first Fires album, it's really hard to explain how different it's going to be from this one. It'd probably be easier to say like the second album is a lot more intricately composed, and it's a lot more grandiose in certain aspects, because there's so many more layers. It's just me working on it. It was me and Randy that created this massive orchestral like wall of sound, really. And recording drums in such a gigantic, massive room like that too, like it created something that we couldn't have possibly done on the first album. As far as the melodies and the sound, I think they're also evolving in and of themselves. I'm always going to be infusing a lot of like 2000s Gothenburg Swedish melodic death metal in there, a lot of like Finnish doom stuff like that. So it's I don't know. I think it's gonna evolve. Like even the next one's gonna sound way different than this one. So I just can't say how yet, but
Yeah.
it always does. So
Yeah. Yeah. No, cool, cool. How was it? Thanks for that. How was the process for you, Jordan? How was the recording process for you? As Igor said about the size of the room, is that the biggest place that you've recorded in?
Biggest place I've recorded in other studios before. I think I haven't recorded in a room that smelled so good, you know? The wood on the walls, like it was just the room was set up. I don't know if you've ever seen a picture of this power station in New England, but it's set up like an octagon, I think, or just, a very cool like wooden polyhedron. And there's a lot of beautiful instruments in there, including like, like some nice Tama drums and like a array of snares, a piano, some old school like Ludwig drums. Um, Aside from like I forget what the board was. Igor, maybe chime in if you remember what it was called. But I haven't recorded in a studio. I think with like all the environment and the toys to kind of play with.
Yeah.
Um, Especially something as cool looking, like a piece of art, like the studio is just the setup. Not just sounding great, but like looking amazing. And it was really cool working with Dave Kaminsky because I haven't worked doing a studio recording with people who are really have the drums in mind and like a producing and engineering like level that
Mhm.
Dave does. So it's really cool to work with someone who like can see all the little mistakes and little good things as well, right? Not just mistakes, and put it all together, get the best takes, and say we should do that again because of these things that a lot of people don't catch. So it was certainly a pleasure to work with someone who's got like the magnifying glass on the drums
Yeah.
because oftentimes when I'm recording other stuff, it's mostly on me to be like I didn't like that take for the comp. So it's cool to have a team, the fires guys as well as Dave, just to make the best thing that we could,
Yeah.
in the studio.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Jordan. So, talking about yourself, then, how did you go about becoming the drummer for Fires in the Distance and Igor? I hope you made him audition twice before he got the gig. So, how did you get in, Jordan?
So I actually had a mutual friend that was they were recording like a live version of I forget which song or maybe a couple songs. I'm not sure.
it was Sundial from the first album.
Dial. Yeah, so they were recording Sundial as like a live performance version at the studio that I'm friends with the guy who owns it. And they were, putting the word out that they're looking for a drummer. And my friend Chris, he recommended me, to meet these guys. And I thought I was going to come in and just like watch what they were doing because at the time Kyle was still playing drums. But talking to Craig was like, "Hey, I heard you play drums." Like I was kind of shocked that they were, knew I was coming not only as just like someone to check out, be a fan,
Yeah.
but just to make some business connections, for the band. So I would join them for a couple of rehearsals and I think it was like three, maybe two or three before you guys kind of maybe asked to join. Maybe it was one. I don't know.
I
Was
had
it
it locked in after the first one, but all right.
locked in? I feel like maybe it was two. I'll just give them, credit. Say it took like two tries, maybe one and a half to be like, hey, you should hang out with us more.
Yeah.
But yeah, it
So,
was thanks to like a kind of like just a sit in on one of their videos, and I got to meet them.
what would you say is the difference between the drumming in the two albums then?
The
What?
I
different drumming. I think there's um I don't know. There's like I think a different feel. There's definitely maybe an increase of the tempo too, aside from different feels with the riffs. And there's still like those portions where it's like synth and drums, where it's
Yeah.
like a bit of like a breath. We could hear more of that, like almost like a solo, but it's not like a very notey kind of crazy, drum solo, but it's more of like something I don't know that helps you think maybe. I don't know, something to listen to while you're driving, but the accents.
I think
Yeah.
the first album, the drumming was definitely much more like militant almost. It was like very heavy driven, uh, in a good way. And then Jordan is like coming from a whole different world, and he added, like his fusion, like jazzy shit to it, which, like really interestingly enough, fit very well. You
Yeah.
know those big open spaces where it's just drums and synth, the guitars are laying back and just letting the melody build up gradually in a crescendo and then, you
Yeah.
know, you feel in that space really well.
I sometimes feel awkward when I talk to drummers from like death doom bands. Like you look at My Dying Bride, and he's got like the Nickel McBrain size drum kit and all the rest of it, but he only hits them like once and stuff like that, and it's kind of slow and things like that. Do you not wish they had a wee blast beat in their song? Do you think a wee blast beat would fit in one of your songs?
Well, there's already 2 songs with blast beats.
There's a couple.
Yeah,
hidden in the albums. Yeah.
They're very short. But on the next record, there's definitely going to be more prolonged sections with some blasts. So,
oofed.
Yeah.
Well, see, when it's done right, I mean, there's a time and a place for like a grind album, you know, but sometimes it's difficult to listen to a 20, 30-minute album solid or blast beats. I'm really into my Death Doom at the moment. But see, when there's a wee blast beat in there and when it's at the right place at the right time, sounds really good. So
there's an excellent band called Ex Genesis that's like Death Doom, and they do blast beats like that perfectly. It's a very slow tempo, but it works so well. You know what I mean? It's just like, and they only add it exactly where it needs to be, and it just elevates the atmosphere and the emotion of it so much more. So that's the kind of stuff I want to try to explore on the next one.
I'll need to check them out as well then. But is there anything about the way that you recorded this album that you did differently than your debut? And that you're maybe now going to take forward to your next release? Like, do you think you've now found the formula, like the studios, the right people to mix and master it for you, the right people to do the orchestration, or are you always open to new ideas, do you think?
I am 100% going to keep working with the people that I've been working with. Actually, Dave Kaminsky has worked on every single Archaic album, and he did these 2 Fires albums, and I don't think I'm going to work with another engineer again, just because he has an amazing ability to internalize exactly what I'm looking for, and he extracts it, you know, in a very efficient way. And I think the difference between the first album and this one is that we just had more room to really capture some unforgettable sounds this time around, whereas the first time we were just we didn't have anything else on the table. We just wanted to record an album out of just to do it, you know, just like, okay, we have 6 songs, I forget, you know, just we really dig them, and like let's record them the traditional way, like we've always done with Archaic. And then something happened where people just enjoyed it that much that you know, we expanded on everything for this second record. So you know, and that difference will be audible for sure, but I will definitely keep working with Randy, and I will definitely keep working with Dave 100%.
Will you do the similar with the drums? Will you still use the same studio as well?
We'll see. I mean, it's too early to say. I would love to go back there. I mean, I am absolutely in love with the sound of this album. So given the opportunity, 100%.
Yeah. No, cool. Thank you very much for that. But with everything that's happened in the last couple of years, has it made you look at the more business side of the band more and keeping the name out there? Like, have you now maybe, with everything being more IT and all social media and things like that, have you maybe taken on roles that you didn't think that you would have to take to keep?
That's my least favorite part of this whole musician thing. And, you know, I delegate the majority of that to our bass player, Craig, and he kind of spearheads all of it anyway. So I'm a pretty, I don't know, I stay off the internet as much as I can. I just like pop on here and there just to make sure everything is in order, you know, on the main pages, but I try to stay offline. It's just like, I don't know, social media algorithm, all that stuff, and staying in line, like that kind of like dancing jester thing for the internet, like that. I don't know. That's I have some trouble with that, just because like allocating free time to do it, and you know, staying up, because it becomes another job. And I was just like, you know, between my regular job and then my job in this band, already have 2 jobs. Like, I don't have room for a third. So
yeah.
um
And then you've got the things like the merch. I mean, I don't know if you've got a man cave in your house or something like that, but it'll be full of like shirts and jumpers and all the rest of it.
it's all Craig. He's
Yeah,
all
the
that
bassist
stuff.
house, you know.
Yeah.
You're good at delegation as well, Igor. Then you're good at delegating.
Well, actually, I mean, as far as that stuff goes, I didn't even have to delegate too much to Craig. He kind of in the last couple of years, he really took a lot upon himself to try to push this band into directions where I never even like considered going, because just not something I thought about. I just write music out of love of writing music, but Craig he's a very hungry guy,
Yeah.
so he takes a lot of that stuff on himself. Like, whenever you message our Instagram account or Facebook or whatever, like, the first message you'll get back is 100% from him. You know what I mean? He's the one to get back. So he kind of lives online. Uh,
Yeah. So
and
it's
God bless
Craig
him
that was
for it.
answering my emails then.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
God bless him for it, because it's a lot harder for me than I guess for him to do that.
Yeah, cool. Thanks very much for that, guys. So we're going to look at the lyrics for a wee second. With Craig and Christian being the vocalists of the band, then, Jaeger, do you leave them to take care of the lyrics for the music, or were the contributions from other members of the band as well, or how are the lyrics done for the songs?
No, I write all the words.
That's it. It's a hell of a lot of pressure you're putting on. Well, I know you don't see it as pressure, but I mean,
It's honestly, dude, this whole band is a passion project of mine. So I don't see it as pressure. It's something that comes directly out of my brain and my heart. So it's like I don't struggle with any of it.
the question I have to ask then is, when you are writing the lyrics, you're portraying Craig and Christian singing it, but is it sometimes difficult for you to portray how you want them to sing it?
No, not at all. Not at all, because I'm a gigantic fan of metal vocals in general across the board. Like, one of my favorite frontmen of all time is Peter from Hypocrisy.
Yeah.
I used to listen to Nightmares Made Flesh by Bloodbath almost every day in the early 2000s, so it's just like a lot of that vocal style is how like, when I write words, that's how I envision them in my head. So when we go to practice, I will usually stand like shoulder to shoulder with Christian, and I can't scream like they do or whatever, but I can accentuate and explain, like, these are the syllables that I want you to focus on. These are the parts of the words that I want you to accentuate. And it's a bit of a process, but like, and I'm sure it's a little bit unnatural for them, because it's not coming from their heads, but like, once they get it, they're like, oh, so that's what you're talking about. And when it clicks, it's smooth sailing from there,
Yeah. No, cool. Jordan, did they ever ask you to do backing vocals as well?
They tease it. They tease it. Maybe one day I'll get like that.
You could be Chris Reifert of the band.
Yeah, I think it'd be cool. I'm always enjoying seeing like metal drummers who are doing the vocals too. I think it's super hard and impressive. So maybe one day, we'll experiment with it. We'll get back to that.
Do you know, it's just something that I love seeing in the band, especially on the live front. One of the best bands that I've seen live is Nile. And when they had like 3 vocalists just growling at the same time, it's just absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. Vitriol as well. It just has so much diversity to the song. So any band that's got more than one vocalist has instantly got my attention.
Well, we're lucky to have Craig and Christian both man that.
Yeah.
I think both equally as powerful. Craig has his own things to focus on as far as playing bass, but he, definitely steps into his own when he has a lot more vocal parts on this album. So
yeah. Well, what about yourself, Igor? You say that you can't do the screams. Can you do clean?
No, I can't hit a note. My voice to save my life. I just save it for the instrument. Like, horrible. the curse. You know, it feels like if I could, it would be so liberating. You know, it seems I'm always so jealous of like guys that can sing and can project and have those like vocal cords that are just like structured for it. I know if you worked on it, of course you can develop a voice, but at this point, 35 years old, I mean, like I'm not gonna start now.
Yeah, no, I get that, But Jordan, is Igor also the type of guy that would send you a riff at 4 o'clock in the morning saying, "This is my best riff I've ever written, by the way, listen to this"?
Maybe he does send me a lot of music recommendations, like at very strange times of the day and night, and also, plenty of great memes. So I don't doubt it. If he had like a demo and he threw it up, is like, check this out, I might be up and I might listen to it. Yeah, absolutely possible. Probably been done a couple times.
Cool.
I have been accused of that many times, but
If
Yeah.
I'm up, I can listen to it. Yeah.
But now moving on to the visual side of the album for a minute, you've released a video to coincide with each of the 3 singles that you've released for the album so far. Is that something that you're not scared of doing? Like, for example, I'm aware of like another band that I've interviewed recently. They would rather focus with the money, just keep it for the band, and do more music. They're just solely focused on the music. Whereas you guys are quite adapt. You guys aren't scared to release a music video. Do you have plans to release another one once the album's been released, or is that the conclusion of the visual side?
no, there's another one dropping on the day of the release for a song that's not out yet. So technically, it's going to be single number 4. So that's going to be in a few weeks. We just finished filming it with Jason from Astralborn, another prosthetic band, which is an incredible melodic death metal band. Them and Four Token are unbelievable bands.
I
But
played a lot of Four Token as well. Yeah, good band.
yeah, Jason filmed Wisdom, and he just filmed the one that's coming out in 3 weeks. We just got the final copy of it, and it's amazing. We love it. So yeah, no, I think visuals and videos are definitely important. Like yeah, of course, like we focus on the music, but when you really break things down, people are captivated by images and colors, and it's just very basic things that it comes down to. Like if you post a song on Facebook or Instagram or something like that, and just your album cover, people are that much more likely to scroll past it because there's nothing captivating happening. If it's
Mhm.
if it's a video, naturally people are going to tune in a little bit more just to give it a chance,
Yeah.
and that just gives it that much more of an opportunity for someone to lock into to a melody, or unclick the silent button and let the music play, you know what I mean? So I think it's an imperative thing to do, like when you're trying to get people to hear your music. And
Yeah.
yeah, it does take a lot of money and time and investments and planning, but if you want people to hear your music, then you got to make sacrifices. So it is what it is.
Agreed. And keeping with the visual side of the album, then we're going to talk about the artwork for a second, because I noticed that you guys done this to me on purpose. Is it Kaelan Storkermans?
It is. Yeah, you nailed it. Yeah.
So you used them on for the front cover. Again, was that an easy decision? But I'm also interested to know, like, what did you give him? Did you give him the album? Did you give him the song titles? Did you give him my lyrics? Or did
I,
you
I
just say, this is
it,
my concept that I have, or give him
it's
free
all it's
reign?
all of the above. I sent him because he did the last cover art of the last Archaic Decapitator EP. He did the first Fires one. He did this Fires one. And what I usually do, I send him the whole album, and I explain to him exactly what kind of imagery I want to capture, like as far as what kind of mood and atmosphere and just emotion that I'm conveying through these particular songs here.
Yeah.
And I'll it is a process too. It's just like Kalen and I go back sometimes for weeks until we settle on an image that he can finally like flourish from. But in the end, like he's a masterful guy. I always trust him with anything he's doing. But yeah, it's not. It's I definitely don't just like leave it up to leave it up to him to figure it out. Like I put in whatever ideas that I have, and he has captured them extremely well. So I'm very happy with working with him. We were lucky enough to meet him out in Ohio this summer on tour. So
Yeah.
he's done some amazing work for some really, really cool bands. So
Well, long may that continue. Long may that continue. But you just talked about a tour there. That leads me nicely onto my next question, because now that the world has opened its doors again, you can play live. I see that you've got a string of US dates. So what gigs do you have coming up? You headlining? Are you supporting? Are you supporting a major act or anything like that? What's the script?
not yet. We have 2 release dates next month. One here in our home state, and then one in Delaware at Birmingham Meadery, which are also big players and just helping us like land on the map too. They're really good friends of ours, make really good mead. As far as shows outside of that, we are in the process of booking a tour in the fall. I don't know if it's too early to say, and you can edit this out later if it is too early, with Dawn of Ouroboros, which is also from Prosthetic. They're a really sick band. We're just trying to figure out exactly how many consecutive days we can take off of work at this point.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I don't really have a job where I think I can be gone for 14 days at a time. I can maybe, you know, through like some schedule shifts and some paid time off, I can do maybe 10, but it's not easy. So, you know, we're working on something for the fall. We have some intermittent dates in the summer too.
Yeah.
So, but we stay on top of like keeping people informed about all that stuff.
Well, I'm pretty sure there's going to be a lot of noise with the release of the album as well, and it's just coming out nicely in time for the summer and things like that. So who knows? You might get offers from further afield. You might get 1 or 2 wee dates at European festivals or something like that. You just don't know, especially when you've got the backing of Prosthetic.
Yeah, I mean, if that comes along, then I will do my best to make time for it. But you know, like it's balancing your work with this work is a really big challenge. So, and both are equally as important. Well, music is obviously always going to be way more important to me, but the other one pays my bills. Music will never pay my bills. So, you know, it's
You'll just need to write a ballad or something like that, you know, and just.
I feel like half of my songs are ballads. They just have like guitar.
Is that what Doom is, right? Doom is just like the ballads of metal.
Yeah.
But we just talked about Prosthetic there. You were signed to Prosthetic for your debut album as well, and this album. So, how did the relationship start? How's the relationship been so far, and what do you hope Prosthetic Records will bring to Fires in the Distance?
This is definitely a question that my bass player can answer better than me. Our friends at Birmingham Meadery, JR and John, they heard the album and they know some folks at Prosthetic, and they reached out and they said, "Hey, check this out." You know, and as far as I remember, Prosthetic ended up liking one of our posts, and Craig texted me. He was like, "Hey, you know, this is pretty cool." I told him, I was just like, "Don't bother them, like fucking leave it alone, whatever." He was like, "No, fuck you. I'm gonna send him a message," and he did, and they were just like, "We love your music and we'd love to work with you." So that's essentially how that came about. That's a lot of that credit is to JR and, you know,
We've
John.
got a lot of some roster Prosthetic. I mean, I've played for Tolkien. I've played Screaming the Lick. I've played is it Macabre? Something
Macabre,
like that.
yeah.
Played them as well. So they've got some roster as well. You know?
Psychroptic is huge. You know,
Yeah.
they've had some really amazing. They're like Septic Flesh, Hour of Penance, Neuraxis. They've had like a ton of fucking major bands on over the years. So it's
Cool.
it's you know, it's a pleasure to work with them for sure.
Yeah. Well, I know I'm conscious of your time, Yegor, but this is probably going to lead to another 40-minute discussion, I'm afraid, because I'm going to be asking about the instruments that you used for the recording. So we'll start off with yourself, Diego. What was your guitar set up, your amps, your pedals? Because I imagine you're the kind of geek of the band. You've probably got about 40 different pedals or something.
We all kind of are geeks in our own right. I have I used the 6-string for one song, and that was the same guitar that I used for the last album. I play a Washburn Parallax, and I use Dark Matter 2 pickups in it, which are Steve Vai pickups. They're passives and they're beautiful. For the main guitar, for the 7-string guitar, I use Solar, a 7-string. Lucky enough to be endorsed by Solar. They're very nice guys. I fucking love Ola. As far as amps, Christian and I both use Vader cabinets, and he uses a Mesa triple rec, I believe, and I use a PRS Archon, which is 50-watt amp, but it is extremely powerful. And of course, I have a massive pedal board.
Oh yeah.
I got like three
Awesome.
delays for no reason. I don't need 3 delays, but so, the sound that I blend on them is pretty cool. I use the Vapor Trail delay and Devin Townsend's Ocean Machine pedal, which is like 2 delays and a reverb in it as well. And as far as front of the amp, just an ISP decimator for noise gate, and a boost. That's it. Just like a simple SP boost. Like I don't use anything more than that.
I see when you play a gig, you're probably bringing in more gear than a drummer.
I try to cut down on how much gear we need to bring, especially when we're on the road, because it gets to be a little bit cumbersome, But but the thing is, I would take the organic sound of tube amps over digital all day long, especially in the live setting. But that's just me. I've played with a lot of bands that bring their quad cortexes and their which I also have, but still like Axe effects to shows, and it sounds phenomenal. But there's just something about playing with like traditional tube amps in a live setting that's just like gives it an organic feeling that's you can't trade for digital. So
yeah, cool. Well, thank you very much for all that information. That very much was a 40-minute discussion there. But thanks for that. Jordan, tell us the drums that you use. What size of sticks do you use? Are they like tree trunks or what size of sticks?
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, I feel like broken the most sticks ever since I joined this band. Like of how hard I'm hitting, with these guys. I feel like when you're playing Doom,
I think that was a shout out for a sponsor there, was it not?
Yeah, I mean, I play. I usually buy like the 5Bs, 5As. Sometimes, but usually like the Vic Firth stuff. I mean, I don't know, sticks are sticks many ways, but if someone wants to reach out, we'll say hi. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I like the Vic Firth stuff. And then certainly breaking a lot of sticks, recording the album for sure. Broke a couple of cymbals too, which I never really do, but when Dave has asked me to hit harder, what am I gonna do? And say no. He wants to just sound as angry as possible. Some of these songs, and I mean, you'll hear. I think with the next one coming up with the video, it just sounds like pissed. But for for drums and stuff, I had like a nice Tama set, recording, and then some darker Sabian cymbals because I like the feel of like almost like a bit of jazziness, dirtiness, as well as like more of a glassy sound. I think it's kind of a nice blend. And
was it quite difficult or hard to get the snare sound that you wanted for the Death Doom sound, or was it quite straightforward for you?
Yeah, I mean, I go back and forth. I have like a couple of snares that I go through for different genres, whether it be R&B, jazz, rock, metal. A lot of them, they could be pretty versatile for whatever genre. But for this record, I think we end up going with like a nice maple snare that was actually one from the studio. We tried a couple ones out that were metal, like heavy gauge metal snares, but they ended up being too crazy for the room because it was such like a, kind of perfectly organized room with the octagon shape, and the overtones were nuts. So we tried a couple things out, and we end up just going with a nice wood snare that the studio had because it was able to be articulate enough and controlled enough for how vibrant the room was. So it's, you know, live and in the studio, totally different worlds. Live, I'll try to use like a metal snare to cut through the heavy distorted guitars with the, you know, tube amps. But studio, you know, it could be more delicate, have like a wood snare. I mean, things work, you know, whatever genre, just as long as they're tuned right and hit hard enough. But I like to vary it up a little bit.
So what's the make and model of the drums that you've got?
So the drums I used were a Tama Star Classic birch and walnut configuration, and they sound really good, you know, with some like low notes, and high notes too. But you know, for this record, we definitely tune them, I think, mid to low, get more of a rock and metal sound out of them, and they project great.
Yeah. No, cool. Thank you very much for that, guys. I just have the one last question for you, Igor, and we touched on that earlier. What's happening with Archaic Decapitator then?
Not much. Not much, man. It's that was a whole different world. And honestly, our last EP I was so happy with that I'm okay leaving on that note. Like
it's like Hypocrisy is like the final chapter.
The Apothecary is definitely the final chapter for sure. Because I mean, unfortunately, the reason why our the singer in Archaic and the initial drummer in Fires, he had to leave is because, you know, he started a family, he just had a son, so he can't be involved. And these are some people that I've worked with for since I was 18 years old. So I'm not gonna try to you know, look for new members at this point. I have way too much going on, and honestly, Fires takes up way too much of my time anyway. So it was definitely a very nice period of my life for sure. I think about it all the time. Every time I hang out with my old drummer, like we listen to the old Archaic records and we reminisce. But you know, sadly that time is over. So we got to focus on this. I think Jordan will agree. Like this does take up a significant amount of time for all of us. So
yeah,
you know.
Yeah. So shout out to Kyle, you know, be able to sing and play drums too.
Yeah.
Scream, you know.
He played with a headset on the first album.
Does he?
Yeah.
Cool. But listen, guys, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. I wish you all the success for The Air Is Not Meant For Us. It's coming out April the 28th. So yeah, I'm sure it's going to be a good success for you. And I look forward to playing you for many more weeks on my radio show, as I have been for the last month and a half, 2 months. Every time I play you, I'm getting new fans for you as well. So I wish you all the best, and I'll definitely keep on supporting you guys. I said earlier on, I'll try and do a review for the album as well. I haven't done any reviews for so long now, because I've more or less been doing interviews, but I really will try, because Air's Not Meant For Us deserves to be heard. So fair play to you guys, and keep on writing.
I deeply appreciate that, man. That means a lot, you know.
No worries at all. But just stay on for a wee second. But thank you very much for your time, guys. All right.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.